Welcome back. With no further ado, let's dive in the first step of the UX research. Design is the art of solving problems, and you can't hope to craft a good product with a good design if you don't understand what problem you're solving. The big risk when you have an idea is to think too fast. We think about how the product is going to work and look like and what cool features it could have. We all do it because it's exciting, but because we're doing that, we tend to overlook the root of the idea, the problem we're trying to solve. This is why Dave Mackler, founder of 500 Startups, a famous startups incubator, often tell people who pitch him their ideas, your solution is not my fucking problem. And what he means is that he's more interested in a problem that really bothers people than in a product idea that someone thought was cool. The purpose of this lesson is to help you make sure the problem your app is trying to solve exists and to make sure you understand how it exists. The entrepreneur in me tells me to make a side note here. This course is about design, not about business, but if you're an entrepreneur, the two things are deeply linked, and if you're not an entrepreneur, well, you might become one sooner than you think. If you haven't heard about The Lean Startup by Eric Ries and Customer Development by Steve Blank, take a few minutes to read the resources I've linked to in the description. The core of the Lean Startup and Customer Development philosophy is that everything you do in your work as an entrepreneur must follow the cycle hypothesis, test, learnings, and refine. And it's exactly the same thing for design. And this is how I encourage you to work, and it's actually how we'll work on our problem. Let's start with the hypothesis. What is the problem we think we want to tackle? Let's pretend we're at the start of Instagram a few years ago. The problem hypothesis for us will be that it's complicated to share pictures taken with your phone on social networks. Once we have that, we need to make an hypothesis about who has this problem. Okay, let's say college students, because they use their smartphone a lot and they also use social networks a lot. So how can we test that? Well, it's pretty simple. We're going to talk to these people to make sure that they really have this problem. And in the next video, I'll give you a few tips about how to talk to the potential users. Thanks to these conversations, the hypothesis will be validated or invalidated. The insights we'll get during the conversations will allow us to refine the hypothesis. Maybe this problem exists but for another category of people, or maybe these people have a stronger pain than the one we had identified. For instance, we could have learned that college and high school students don't really care about sharing pictures on social networks with their phones. They just want to take funny pictures and send them to their friends without having to fear that these pictures get out of hand. And this could become something called Snapchat. But let's say that's not what happened. What happened is that only some of the people we interviewed really cared about the problem we've identified. People who already take a lot of pictures and who want to share them, like photobloggers or people who happen to love photo and technology. So we'll change the customer hypothesis. And we'll go to talk to more of these people to make sure this new customer hypothesis is right. And after talking to them, we might discover that what was really preventing them from sharing pictures taken with a smartphone is that smartphone pictures are not very pretty and thus not really worth being shared. So the customer target is interesting, but only if we tackle another problem for them, the fact that smartphone's pictures look dull. Of course, that's not the way it happened for Instagram. Instagram is a pivot of a checking app called Bourbon. However, if you look at Instagram's FAQ, they did build their app with these problems in mind. Have a look here. 1. Mobile photos always come out looking mediocre. 2. Sharing on multiple platforms is a pain. And 3. Most uploading experiences are clumsy and take forever. 2 and 3 are two components of a more general problem, so I've merged the two to keep it simple. Don't try to solve more than one problem, or maybe two if you have to. You'll lose your focus and so will your app, and this is the best way to make it irrelevant and cluttered. Remember, good designers solve problems, great designers solve the right problems. That's it for this lesson. We've covered the importance of finding out the right problem to tackle by talking to your potential users and the art of refining and validating your hypothesis. If you're already working on a personal project, take a piece of paper and write down your problem hypothesis in less than 10 words. Same thing for your customer hypothesis. That's it. Pretty simple, right? You don't even need to go out to talk to customers yet. In the next lesson, we'll talk about great techniques to get to know the users to create something that makes sense to them. See you in a bit.